Well, I mean, look, it's been an unusual campaign in many ways, right? And that's one of them. I mean, part of it is you just have a very unusual set of candidates. Most of all, of course, Donald Trump, and it's been a big discussion. Not just the president bringing it up, but the president brought it up after it's been a big discussion for months at this point within media circles, of course, and others. You can understand why the excitement of that beginning took people by surprise. I mean, it took the media by surprise, right? I don't think anybody that tells you that they knew that this was going to unfold the way it did, they're lying, you know. And I think what's been happening is everybody's been playing a little bit of catch up for one thing, or like, wait a minute, we were wrong. Wait, are we right now? Are we right now? Are we right now? So there's been a lot of thinking, guessing, second guessing about what's the right way to cover it, what's the right way to treat these candidates or treat their proposals, and Donald Trump, of course, is example number one. I think it's fair to say, people did not take him that seriously at the beginning, right? And so they didn't take him seriously. They didn't take the possibility of him winning seriously. They didn't take his issues, ideas seriously. So there wasn't the usual sort of treatment of a politician. It seems to me that's changed recently, and that he gets treated a little bit, he gets treated more traditionally now. But this question of, you bring up calling in rather than appearing, that's been that's been unusual.
Right. Yeah. We've always been taught here, you know, in our classes, if you can go to an interview and interview someone, do it in person.
Right. Well, of course. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's most noticeable on the Sunday talk shows, for example, where the great tradition is that you have to show up, right? They've bent those rules. And I think you can see that they've been rethinking it and thinking maybe that they've been wrong to do that. There's no denying that it brings in, I'm not in that, I'm in a slightly different situation in public television, but in the commercial sector, it brings in a lot of money, right? I mean, it brings in a lot of eyeballs. And in many ways, that's wonderful, because you've got an excited populace, you know, you got people excited about that. Is some of it playing to those eyeballs, you know? I mean, is that why they bend the rules a little, or whatever the rules are about letting him call in rather than appearing? Probably.
What is your advice for student journalists? We are still practicing every day. We have the great opportunity to practice journalism. Yeah. What's your advice?
Well, my advice is to be curious about the world, but I would broaden your idea of what journalism is, what the world is, what you might be interested in, what you might be covering. I mean, especially if you're still in school. I mean, my advice always is not to be as unnarrow as possible, to be as broad-minded as possible. And that means that the courses, you should be not just trying to be a journalist, but learn history, learn literature, learn science, learn the environment, learn all kinds. Take those things in, because you don't know how they're going to affect, if you do end up being a journalist. You don't know what kind of work you're going to be doing. You want to have as many different options, not only just in terms of getting a job, but once you have that job, the kinds of things you'll be covering, the kind of background knowledge you might need. There are things, I mean, I'll tell you, I was a classics major in college,
really?
Ancient Greek.
Wow.
Now, does that have anything to do with the questions you just asked me about the political campaign? Not really, and yet, you know, they had political campaigns in the 4th century BC, you know, in Athens. And it's not that whatever I learned back in college about politics in Athens translates directly into some piece I'm doing right now, but the knowledge of that stuff like that went on is useful, you know, because you learn a little bit more about human history and about human nature. So my advice is learn as much as you can broadly. Whatever you think you want to kind of specialize in, fine, but be open to other things, and just be as curious as you can about the world. And I tell you one more thing, learn to write. okay? I don't care if you're in television or whatever or anything like that, but writing, I just think is so important. Know how to tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you can be a good journalist.